welcome to the Media Roundtable special edition. This is a very special edition because we're talking about a number of topics related to something very near and dear to my heart, which is anxiety. For those of us that, as an ENTJ on the Myers-Briggs, we usually swing one way or the other on the spectrum. But we are talking about mental health. We are talking about ad performance. And we're talking about a particular creator and a show that you may or may not be familiar with called the Anxiety Coaches Podcast. And we have invited Gina Ryan to join us today. And Gina came across our radar for a special reason. And that is because when we put out our Orbit list, the Oxford Road Benchmark Intelligence tool that ranks how different shows perform on a blended average across advertisers in the program, Gina came up number one in her category, which is an incredible achievement. So we're going to talk to Gina a little bit today about her show. We're going to talk to Gina about Gina and what she does for people who may or may not be dealing with some level of anxiety. And we're going to talk about how creators, from her view, can really connect with audiences in a way that moves the needle for the advertisers that support the show. So Gina, welcome. Grateful to have you on the Media Roundtable, and thanks for being with us.
Dan, thank you for having me. It's an honor. It's this one lovely honor, and I get to meet all these lovely people over there at Oxford Road. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to get into your world a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And what we decided to do, given the nature of your program, is we decided to make the onboarding for this particular episode very anxiety provoking by having 6 or 7 technical challenges on the way
Yes.
in. Did you experience anxiety in the last 10 minutes while we were going through that?
Let's say I was getting a little nervous there when the first couple of tries didn't help. Yeah. But no
Okay,
anxiety.
and what did you
I
do?
am not anxious.
No anxiety. What is the difference between nervous and anxious?
Yeah, for me, like nervous is these things are going to happen in life. We get, you have to go speak in public, or something bad happens in your life and you get hit with a tsunami of stress and issues. You're going to get nervous. You may even experience anxiety. But what I deal with people and what I lived back in the dinosaur ages was what I call living down the wormhole. That's anxiety where it's all day, it's every day, or it comes and you can't get out of it. Whereas regular
So is
normal
that the
stress
difference
is
between
different.
like stress? Yeah. Okay. So stress is a moment in time and the symptoms may be the same, but the difference is it becomes anxiety when it just never stops, when
You're
it's
s-
with you and it's kind of pervasive.
you're stuck in the cycle, and you become afraid that you're going to be afraid, or you're afraid you're going to get nervous. That's anxiety. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe I don't have anxiety, but
You
I think we
probably
use the
just
word
live
a
a
little
stressful
loosely.
life.
Yeah, I think you could say
Mhm.
that. But all the stresses of my choosing. So it's a blessed life
Exactly.
while it is stressful.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and you did something that we were just starting to learn about, but I want to jump back into it. You just decided to go from a very low stress environment to a different. Who goes from Hawaii to New York and
Yeah.
why?
Yeah. I know. Who would do that? And everybody here is like, "Why did you come here?" Although
Are you
it's
trying to
beautiful.
test your own capabilities
We're
or what?
trying to see how strong I am, how resilient I am.
Hmm.
And I will say
Hmm.
the people who live in central New York are very resilient with this weather. But
Hmm.
in May, my mom died, and this is the family home that I am in right now. And so it's mine now. And so I had to take care of a lot of issues, and I couldn't fathom doing it from 6,000 miles away. And over the years, my children had been in Hawaii and California, and they have since, and now I have one in Philadelphia and one here in central New York. So after losing my mom, I wanted to be closer to my family. I came back for my mom the last couple months of her life and loved being with my children. So I I said, the house, I got to take care of it anyway. Why not come back and do this for now?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Um, I'm glad that you're getting a chance to reconnect, more physically present,
Yeah.
uh, with your children, and that sounds like a great move on many levels. The weather maybe not being one of them, but let's talk about you and kind of the work that you do, and maybe we can stay on this thread, and you can talk about how you got into this space and what it is you try to help people with, and maybe even a glimpse of how going through the types of things you've just described, how you've been able to self apply some of that, even in this life transition.
Yeah, so that's a lot of questions, but how I got involved is
I can break them down. Fair enough.
you
Let's
want to
okay. Let's
start at the
let's go. Then
beginning?
let's go back. Yeah, I mean, I think, and we don't need to spend the whole episode on origin, but I do think it's important to learn a little bit about your background, and maybe how it's working with you today.
Yeah. So my background, I think I got plunged down what I call the wormhole when I was 18, 19 years old, somewhere in there. Had some stress going on. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think it was also weed induced. And,
Hmm.
I grew up in the 60s and very early 70s. And I couldn't imagine what people are doing now. But, I just got thrown into this cycle that I couldn't get out of. Like, I'd experienced nervousness and stress before, and I gotta tell you, Dan, it took me trial and error. There was no internet. People of my ilk, blue collar, middle class, didn't go to therapy. It took me my own desire to find my way out, and it took me a long time. It took me a long time, but I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of research at libraries. I had friends who were physicians. I had pointers. I have a deep spiritual life, and I think that really helped me a lot. So at one time, had to take my son. This is many years later. I have to take my son, who's 18, to visit a college in Boston, and we're on a little plane, putt, 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 from Syracuse to Boston, and I was panicked, and I told God, if I ever get out of this, I will help other people somehow. I'll write a book. That was the big thing back then. I will write a book. That didn't happen. I had a very busy life. I owned 2 health food stores, but I very slowly came out of it, and I learned what worked and what didn't work. No, so big deal. I got all this information, nowhere to put it. I end up working in eating disorders in Hawaii. When I closed my stores, I was a nutritionist and wellness educator at Spa Mirabeau in Skinny Atlas, and when I went to Hawaii, got picked up by a couple of eating disorder groups to educate their patients. And I had been wondering what the common thread was between those people with eating disorders because I had not been anorexic or bulimic, and those were the people I worked with. And they related to me so well. Therapists used to say to me, "I don't know why they like you. They usually hate the nutrition educator because no one wants to talk. They don't want to talk about their food." Um, but what I found after talking to the women and of the few men we had, our common thread was that they were anxious and I knew anxiety. I had been anxious way back in the day. I mean, by then I hadn't had anxiety in 15 years or 20 years, but um, so I found that common thread. And then next thing you know, I'm dealing with people with their anxiety. And the podcast happened. And I decided, so I'm doing eating disorders and anxiety on podcasting. So that was had two things
That's
going at
where
the
we are
same
today.
time. Yeah, well, I don't do eating disorder in person anymore. I do have some online clients, but nobody in person anymore.
So in a way, you did do your book, but it's an audio book, and it's released
Exactly.
episodically twice a
E
week now, and the
exactly.
focus is helping people with anxiety and eating disorders. Okay, so that brings us up to today. So, like, what are some of the methods that if people listen to your show, they'll hear you coaching folks who are struggling with these things?
Mm.
And were you able to recruit any of those things? Did you need to in everything that you've been dealing with over the last year?
Yeah, I definitely had to remember those things over this. When your mom is dying, and I spent, all that time, 6 weeks with her in hospice at her side. And, it's difficult, right? Moving from Hawaii back to central New York and selling your car and all of your things, whatever. Um, I had to remember what I teach. And I often even say on the show, Dan, I'm talking to myself. I am reminding myself because we are human beings and we're going to feel agitated. We're going to feel heightened. We can feel scared. But the thing that we have to remember is in this moment, am I safe? Am I safe right now? Because anxiety isn't about being in the present moment, it's about being in the future. It's about, like today, trying to get on here and we had some technical issues. If I were saying to myself, oh my God, this is never going to work, they're going to think I'm a fool. Um, I'm going to blow this opportunity to talk to these great people. If I had said all that future thinking, I would have worked myself up more and more. So what we always have to come back to is, all right, am I okay right now? My feet are on the ground. I'm breathing. Everything, nobody is in danger. No one's bleeding. Like, we can do this. We can figure this out. And a lot of the anxiety, Dan, is about just remembering that you are safe in this moment.
I feel more safe just hearing you say that. Um, okay, so this is helpful, and I think I'd love to understand. So, um, your show, if you were to explain it to somebody that hasn't listened before, or somebody in the advertising community that wants to
Mhm.
know, what they might be getting involved with. Clearly, that is the focus. Can you talk a little bit about format, frequency, and audience? What can you share about the show itself?
Sure. So it's twice a week, Sunday at 9 a.m. and Wednesdays at 4 p.m. for the last 10 years. Twice a week. It's about 17 to 23 minutes, somewhere in there. Um, we have uh, we have occasional guests, but not a lot. I learned early on, I think within the first 3 years or so, I learned the guest episodes did not get as many downloads as when I was just behind the mic, which was kinda surprising to me because at the time, everybody was doing podcasting, it was all about your guests and who you had on and who the experts were, and I didn't look at myself as an expert, I kinda looked at myself as, like, just a fellow traveler that had maybe was a couple of steps ahead of other people and being able to share my experience and my hard-earned wisdom. But I cut back on the guests, so I don't have a lot of guests. Um, we have some meditations. Occasionally, I try to monitor that I don't put too many in, but people like them. We talk a little bit first about why I'm doing the meditation, why it might be helpful. So we do that, and then we have a short meditation. So it's about half and half, half uh, why, and many of the other episodes they're kind of educational. We talk about what's going on or emails that I get. I get a lot of email or questions that people are asking in my group coaching. I'll bring some of those questions onto the show and answer them. And that's always really helpful because people realize I'm not alone. Other people are struggling with this too. Yeah.
Gina, it's interesting to hear you describe a podcast being recorded at specific times of day
Yeah.
every week.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that since so much of how we understand this is about on demand and time shifted? Is there a reason? Do you also share it live in some feed or what's with the timing?
Yeah, no, I don't share it live. I think those times and the days are definitely self-pressure so that I get it done. In order to show up twice a week and have that done, and obviously I could, record them all and, schedule them and not have to worry about it. But I wanted to in the early days, I did absolutely everything all by myself, so I had to edit and, so forth and so on, and it took a lot of work for me to do that. So I've just never veered from that's when it shows up, and people actually I've had one go out late once on a Sunday, and I got email, like, people "Where is it?" So,
That's great.
yeah.
That's great. And how did you build an audience over the years since you've been doing this? Do you know anything about reach, about demographics, anything like that?
Yeah, so, demographics, we lean toward, the women, but not by much. I would say 60-40, and I have a lot of men for as clients, which was also a big surprise to me. I think you go into these things thinking who you're gonna reach, and it doesn't always turn out that way. It's amazing who can find you. Um, so that's they're pretty, I would say middle class and up because, I have a lot of professionals, doctors, lawyers, those end up being clients. That's why I know that they are listening. I never put out anything asking who they were, not with anxiety. I did not wanna stress anybody by asking about their professions or anything, but from my group members and my coaching, I can see that's, a big part of who or a big group of who is listening. Now, what was you asking? You were asking something earlier than,
Yeah, just about reach and, if
oh,
I'm also
how
interested in like the and I don't know how much you study the numbers of the show all the time, but do you have a sense of which platforms they're consuming through
yeah.
in total number of uh listeners or viewers? Is it video and audio? So stuff like that.
Yeah, so, audio, pretty much I like to look at the show as being, audio first. I do have a YouTube presence, but we just have a static picture of something beautiful, because a lot of my people listening, they actually either close their eyes, they go to sleep, they're driving. YouTube, it's fine. I'm there because I have to be. It's not my choice, and a most of the listens come through, Apple is what's the main thing, but I don't know, Dan, this is more your world, where it all breaks down into the smaller, um, apps, because I see I have, like, thousands and thousands of, subscribers on all these different apps, and so I don't quite know how all that works, but, um, the the show grew organically. I have to say that as much as I would like to think it was through my efforts, of marketing it. I'm not a marketer. I don't do well with trying to sell my show. I can talk to you about a sponsor because if it's something I use and I have liked or I bought it for my daughter, like, I can talk about it. It's great. But to just say, "Oh, this show is the best," it's hard for me. It grew organically, and this year we are going to start, um, putting a lot of effort because I feel I'm settled enough, I can do that now, into growing the show. Um, but it really did grow
Okay.
organically.
Tell me if you've ever heard of any of these companies: Shopify, DraftKings, Oracle, Warby Parker, Mint Mobile, Quince. I am proud to say that half of the top 10 advertisers in podcasting choose to work with Oxford Road. We are now the world's largest podcast advertising agency, and we do so much more than that: YouTube, radio, streaming. We are on 6 continents working internationally. Reach out to us. We'll tell you about Woven, which is probably the world's largest database of show information that's relevant for brands. Orbit, which is $1.6 billion of aggregated performance data used to de risk every single campaign. Audiolytics, where we can actually measure ad copy and optimize it to maximize performance. We got a lot going on over here. That's why you can read about us in the Wall Street Journal or the Hollywood Reporter or USA Today or Business Insider. But whatever you need, we try to bring thought leadership that matters to you. Sign up for our newsletter that is called The Influencer. When you go to oxfordroad.com, you can always learn more at the Media Roundtable podcast. We got a lot of interesting content. If you just want to learn about this business, and if you don't care, but you just need somebody to make sure that you're getting outcomes that only we can deliver, go to oxfordroad.com and learn more, and make sure you mention the Media Roundtable, because attribution. That's oxfordroad.com. That's great. Yeah. And, typically most audiences come from iTunes if it's a long time show like yours. But then obviously Spotify and YouTube are the X factors. That's where 90+% of the audience would typically come from. And some shows are 50% or more YouTube impressions now. And it really just depends on the, when you came in, how you promoted it and everything like that. And it's interesting to hear that you've been able to build a following without worrying about any of that and just focusing on the product, which I would say is marketing, but you're not messing around as much with the promotion side. But that's great because it's organic, and it means I think it might ladder to, the kind of the main topic here, which is advertising, right? And, one of the things that I've been learning a lot when we talk to creators and people that are promoting content, there's all these methods. Some we've had some folks on with very successful shows that would say, like, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or X or YouTube or whatever, they're all different instruments, and they all have to be played a little bit differently to maximize the audience reach and to promote. But one of the challenges is when you play the algorithm game, you also make a trade where you can introduce yourself to more people. They may be more easy come, easy go. And so there may not be the same stickiness or depth once they get there, and they may not actually be as engaged. It's interesting to think about, while some people and I wouldn't suggest there's a right way or a wrong way. But there are different ways. And kind of your way up the mountain is to say, I'm going to focus on just the show, and let it grow organically. I would posit that it's not a surprise that your ad performance indexes higher than other shows that may be more promotion oriented, because that means that people had probably more intent when they were discovering you. It was a little bit more organic. It wasn't that they, saw a video promoted, clicked it once and never again. And I think that may benefit downstream some of the brands that you're working with.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
So put that in your pitch when you start promoting this year.
Yeah.
So on that, you showed up on our list because we look across thousands of properties and we say, okay, which programs have the highest propensity to drive result for brands? Can you talk about your kind of entrance into the commercial side of this? When did you start selling products and services? How do you think about it?
Yeah. Well, I guess when you start a show when you're 60 years old, you just look at it differently. I was 60. I was just going to share my wisdom. I already had full-time work and I was doing this on the side. And same thing with the advertising or the beautiful sponsors that come my way. The first one, I think they came to me. I would get an email. I think the first one was, I don't know if you remember them, Spring of Life, who then became Athletic Greens, who now is AG1. And I'm swapping emails with this guy trying to come up with numbers. I had no idea. I had listened to some podcasts about sponsorship, so I pulled some numbers from these kind of shows. And next thing you know, I have a product at my doorstep, and I have a sponsor for the show. And so I kind of limped along like that a little bit, just sponsors here and there. I didn't
Selling
go.
your own, sponsorships.
Yes, yeah. I didn't go looking for them. They kinda were coming to me at first, and so,
Well, and you
uh
didn't have anybody representing you, so you would
no.
talk to the advertiser directly, and then you'd have to
Yes.
figure out, well, did we sell any, product? And
Yeah.
hopefully they tell you, and hopefully
Yeah,
they buy another ad.
and I think for them it was kinda new also. So I think because that
Mhm,
was in, probably I don't know, 16? 'Cause I know in
mhm,
2018 or 20 end of 2017 or 2018, I, asked some friends who were in the podcast world who also have podcasts independent, and, I hooked up with Heather Osgood with True Native Media,
mhm.
and she was early in her podcasting, media, selling, and, I just it's been a good relationship since then, so
Yeah, Heather's great. Heather's a pro and,
yes, she
has done a
is.
lot in this industry. And so, as you've been doing that, if you were to say why you think you might be more successful on average than other, whatever you call yourself, creator, influencer, podcaster, host, um, your results are set apart. Why do you think that is?
Well, I didn't know until now that my results were set apart, so, I haven't really thought about that a lot.
Uh-oh. Well, I may not have done people a service because now your rates are going to go up. Don't tell
Yeah,
anybody.
I know. I
Just
gotta
take
talk to
pride.
Heather about this, yeah.
Right.
Um, um, I think the fact that I have just done this, like I said, total beginner's mind. I study a lot of Buddhist philosophy, and so I really have beginner's mind. I don't pretend that I know about these things. I'm just learning, and so I have to take it slow because I don't particularly have full steam ahead kind of energy with it, and what I think happens is I only take, sponsors that really resonate either with me or with my, I call them my clients or my listening family. Um, I don't try to sell everybody everything. I think there's enough, in my world that my people would need that there would be advertisers for that, and so I think I just take it, um, along those lines. It's kinda coming out of me. I either enjoy the product if I have even said no to ones that I used and then I didn't like some things they did, and I the next time they came back to renew, I said no because I didn't want my listeners to run into the issues that were coming up with people. So, um, I guess
So
maybe
there's
I'm
an
picky.
authenticity in that. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I think that's a hallmark sign of some of the best, advertising partnerships is if the creator doesn't say yes to everything. And, if they can not only tell a good story, but a true story, I think the audience can tell, and the trust. If you take that approach, it may not be stated, but an audience trusts you because they believe you care about them
Yeah.
and you respect them, and you want to be authentic and organic in the types of things that you're saying. And if you're going to promote something and you carry that along, that trust gets transferred onto the advertiser. Is there anything about the way that you deliver that you think might be unique? Is there any, because you probably hear other shows and other advertisers,
Yeah.
um, what do you think you bring to the table that may be also contributing just in the execution of the ads?
Yeah, I think I don't speed myself up for it, and when I do my show, I'm a real slow talker. I get behind the mic for my show, and I become like this other person. And the ads come across that way also. Like, if it's something fun and exciting, I'll get more energized about it. But I just talk about it as it's still me. I don't all of a sudden switch into and now word from our sponsor and I become a radio advertisement. But Um, but I don't put it into the format, which I know some people do, and some maybe that fits because it's a comedy kind of thing, and they can be joking around about it. I try to make sure that's very clear that this is a sponsor of the show. I don't ever want anybody to feel like I intertwined the product into, selling it into the meat of the show. I've been real clear about that. Even though sometimes they'll say, "Don't say that this is, an advertisement first." I do. I still say, "And today's
It's good that you
sponsor."
do. I think you're legally, obliged to do that,
Yeah,
so,
I think
it's
so.
important that you do disclose when something is sponsored content, so
Yes.
don't listen, but, it's an interesting dichotomy because, we you included, work in the business of this model of advertising that's about scaling endorsements.
Mhm.
It's about, personal recommendations that are real and are true, hopefully, and that we're able to turn into a marketing product. And yet, you do need to disclose when you're taking money for doing that.
Mhm.
But that's that I think that's the heart of what it is. It sounds like the way you do it is you try to integrate your own experience, and what I'm getting is you're not actually baking it into the program, you're actually going to a commercial break, and then you're doing it, and it's still performing if I'm getting it right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way.
Okay.
It's felt right for
Okay.
me. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And if you had any advice for brands that want to work with you or even other creators in this space and be successful the way you've been able to produce results for brands, what advice would you have for them?
I think one of the things I notice is when you get the copy for an ad, sometimes it's really long. They have so much
Mm.
that they want you to be able to pack into that 60 seconds. And when I did baked in ads, Dan, I used to go way over because I would be like excited about it. I'd be talking about what I used it for and
We like
actually
that, by the way.
yeah. Oh, good. But I
Well,
actually
yeah,
got
yeah. You
called
may
out
not
on
like that,
it.
but we like that. Well, you didn't get called out by us. I can
Um,
assure you that because the more you tell, the more you sell is typically the adage.
so I had to pull it back, and so sometimes when I see these long, and then the call to action at the bottom is in itself sometimes so long, it takes up a lot of space, and like I said, I'm a slow speaker, so, I would have to they always trickle over because I figure I gotta give them enough here, but I think that they should trust that the host knows their audience the best. Like, if they want me sometimes they want me to, like, put a sound in, or they want you to, use a specific term or something, and that can be hard if it doesn't fit with your people. And I think, if
Mhm.
they could trust or maybe talk to the host about it or give us an opportunity to, discuss that, um, I think that could be helpful because it would sound so some of these things makes me laugh because it would sound very inauthentic if I started doing that in the middle of my show. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's always a consistent through line is the brand and the agency working with the brand. A lot of times we'll want to hedge against the apathetic creator who doesn't take the time to get to know it, and so
Mm,
sometimes
yeah.
overprescribe. And
Uh,
then sometimes you got to be careful if you're doing this, and you've got 100 different people endorsing your product. It's hard to do quality control on that because people can go rogue, they can say things that aren't necessarily correct, but I think it's a balance, and I think it's also about knowing who you're working with. And there really is a less is more if you can trust the creator to honor that
mm,
and to really try to tell a true story that's authentic to them. And certainly one of the things I think we've had to work on over the years is to not try to give a voice to the creator. It's not the same when you're producing an ad and running it in a break as when you're handing a message uh, to a creator for them to interpret in their own voice. I think it's a very different practice, and it's an art. It's an art, but I think you're keying into some good stuff here. We're gonna wrap in just a moment here, but a few other topics I just want to hear
Mhm.
from you. Going down the line on the business, um, you're in a really interesting space because you're not just trying to kind of hustle your way to the top of the podcast charts, right? And yet
Right.
you're getting really good returns. It's helping your business. Seems like it's become a core part of your business, whether or not you mapped that out to
Mhm.
build kind of a marketing flywheel with this show at the top of the funnel. But in fact, that is what you've done.
Mhm.
Can you talk about kind of how your business is structured and how the podcast and the brands fit into that? Because I think you may not be doing it in the same way that somebody that's being a little more corporate in their approach is thinking about it. But some of the things that I think you're doing organically are quite transferable to all kinds of creators.
Mm.
So how does that work? Just to spell it out a little further, there are some podcasters that advertising is one line of revenue. They may have a subscription business that they layer on top of it where they get special content. They may have an event business where they're selling tickets. They may have merch. But in all cases, this can often become the centerpiece of your product that you bring to the marketplace. And so, how do you see this fitting in with the rest of your business?
Yes, it's kind of interesting because it changed. When I originally started, I was coaching. That's what I do. I've done that from back when I had my stores and at the spa, and then eating disordered. And then people were wanting to talk to me one on one because I was on the podcast, right? So then I was like, oh, well, I had to make something. It came about because of what people wanted. And then I decided that not everybody wants to do one-on-one, so I created the group a couple months later, and, I do have a subscription model, that I don't push. It's just there for people who don't want the ads, and if you become a group member, you also get um, the podcast without the ads. I don't push that though. Occasionally I mention it, but I've had people say to me in emails, they'll say, I became a subscriber,
We
but
like the ads.
they like the ads. They like
Of
who
course, they like
knew?
the ads.
Who knew?
Say, I knew. Yes, you need to keep those ads, Gina. How
Well,
dare you?
though they told me they're
Doesn't mean you
paying me
can't
the
offer them some subscription products.
they're giving me the subscription money and they still listen to the regular show because she said I never they said they don't mind the ads. I mean, the last one that I got said she was still gonna listen to the ad one. The other ones just said, "I didn't do this because I didn't like your ads." I mean, why would they feel like they even had to say that to me? So it must be that there's it comes across not so irritating or, I'd listen to ads all the time. I don't know why. I just listen. I don't know. I'm an old radio girl, so whatever. I'm used to ads. So
Well, I'm an
it
old
just
radio
came
guy,
together.
so I understand.
The model just came together as those pieces. I think that the top of the model is the advertising model. I mean, the show itself. I never expected that. I wasn't doing that. I closed down other parts of my, own income. I've been a entrepreneur since 1993, so, but I saw I can't do everything, and so I had to cut out some things, and, thankfully, I did focus on the podcast and making sure that that kept happening, and the advertisers have been a big part of that. It's been a good
Hmm.
deal for me.
Hmm. Well, you've built a very interesting business in a very organic way, and there's kind of a dichotomy here because I think for those of us that do this, you know, f- as a commercial interest, and so many people coming into the space,
Mhm.
trying to get in on the creator gold rush. It seems like you've taken some very tried and true, authentic approaches
Mm.
that seem to be paying dividends over time, even though you may be playing more of a long game than many would have the patience for. So, congratulations to you and for everything that you've built. What's next for you, Gina, and for the podcast?
Yeah, like I said, Dan, we're going to, I say we, I have my whole big team of my editor and I, who is my son, by the way. So, um, uh, looking at growing the show, many times Heather would say to me, "Oh, you can work on growing the show." And I'm looking at some different ways this January was setting aside how I can do that, where I can go to increase the way that people can find me. It's not like it was back in 2015 when I first was in here. There were not very many shows about anxiety. There were not very many shows at all. So now I have to actually go out and try to find how people can learn more about the Anxiety Coaches podcast. So that's the plan
Mm.
this year, grow the show.
Grow the show. Okay. Well, listen, thank you for taking time to join us on the Media Roundtable, and may the conversation continue.
Thank you for having me, Dan. Thank you. I'm really honored.
All right. Well, this podcast is brought to you by Oxford Road, where we want you to succeed in podcasting, creator driven media. We want you to use your influence for good. And what that means is you can use your voice as a brand to support content that doesn't just entertain, but edifies and builds bridges across all kinds of people, across all kinds of
Mm.
walks of life, and preserving fair minded discussions over the most important topics of our age. If you're a marketer and you're looking to align your brand values with extraordinary business outcomes, reach out to our agency, Oxford Road, by visiting oxfordroad.com. We can help you find great places like Gina's program that could really help grow your business. If you want to subscribe to our weekly newsletter to hear all about what's going on in this industry through a curated lens for brands, subscribe to our weekly newsletter. It's called The Influencer, and it's absolutely free. We love feedback. Hit us at info@mediaroundtable.com. Don't forget, we also have a show on how audio creative is made and how to make ads perform, hosted by Stu Redwine. It's called Ad Infinitum. Special thanks to our friends at Pave Studios for hosting us today. And also to the whole team, Haley, Bianca, Rocio, Kyle, Ezra, Everett, Neil, and the team at Podcast One. As always, influence responsibly.